I used to believe that love was unbreakable, that marriage was a bond too sacred to ever be shattered. But one decision, one mistake, was all it took to destroy the man who trusted me most. I thought I could hide it, bury it under excuses and silence, but betrayal has a way of clawing its way to the surface. This is the story of how I broke my husband's heart, how one moment of weakness unraveled everything we built together, and how the weight of that mistake still follows me like a shadow. I grew up in a quiet neighborhood, the kind where neighbors exchanged smiles across picket fences, and where marriages seemed to last forever. My husband, Daniel, was my childhood friend. We had walked to school together, shared lunches, and even promised in our teenage years that no matter what, we'd always be in each other's lives. When we finally married, it felt less like a beginning and more like a continuation of something eternal. Daniel was everything I ever wanted: gentle, patient, hardworking. He never raised his voice, never left me wondering if I mattered. He woke up early, kissed my forehead, and carried himself through life as though kindness was stitched into his very being. I thought I loved him as deeply as he loved me, and for years I convinced myself that was enough. Life, however, has a way of testing the strongest bonds. Daniel and I had been together for nearly 10 years when the cracks began to show, not in him, but in me. I had started feeling restless, questioning whether the life we built was enough. Daniel worked long hours, often sacrificing his own rest to make sure we had everything we needed. I should have admired that, but instead, I began resenting the loneliness. That loneliness carved a hollow space inside me, a space that should have been filled with patience and gratitude, but instead, it filled with doubts. I started seeking validation outside our home. Social media became my escape, a place where strangers' compliments felt like sparks in the darkness. I didn't realize that these small sparks were setting fire to everything Daniel and I had built. It was during this time that I met someone new, not in person, but online. His words flattered me, his attention soothed the parts of me that Daniel's busy schedule couldn't reach. It started innocently, conversations about books, movies, dreams. But innocence soon blurred into temptation. Looking back now, I see how fragile love becomes when you start letting shadows in. The messages turned into late-night chats. The late-night chats turned into secrets. And secrets, once they find a place to hide, grow roots that are impossible to pull out. At first, I told myself it was harmless. I convinced myself that Daniel would never have to know, that it was only words and nothing more. But betrayal rarely begins as something grand. It begins with small choices, choices that pile up until the weight of them crushes the heart they betray. The man on the other end of those messages gave me something I foolishly thought I was missing: attention without responsibility, affection without sacrifice. He told me I was beautiful, that I deserved more. And in my selfishness, I started to believe him. But while I was busy feeding my ego, I didn't see how Daniel was quietly breaking himself for us. He stayed late at work not because he wanted to escape me, but because he wanted to build a future we could be proud of. He skipped his own dreams so mine could survive. He carried burdens I never even noticed because he didn't want me to feel their weight. The contrast between his silent sacrifices and my reckless choices became clearer only when it was too late. One evening, Daniel came home earlier than usual. He was exhausted, his shirt wrinkled, his tie loose, but his eyes still lit up when he saw me. He had brought home my favorite dessert, a simple gesture that should have reminded me of all the reasons I fell in love with him. But instead of feeling warmth, I felt guilt clawing at my chest. It wasn't long before the truth came out. Daniel wasn't looking for it. He trusted me too much to even consider betrayal, but lies have a way of unraveling themselves. A message I forgot to delete, a notification I didn't silence, and suddenly, the world we built was hanging by a thread. I still remember the look on Daniel's face when he discovered the truth. It wasn't anger, not at first. It was disbelief, the kind that carves itself so deep into a person's soul that it can never fully heal. His hands trembled as he scrolled through the evidence of my betrayal, his lips parted but silent, as though words had abandoned him entirely. I wanted to explain, to justify, to paint my actions as mistakes born of loneliness rather than selfishness. But betrayal doesn't come with explanations that matter. To Daniel, the love he had poured into me had been repaid with disloyalty. The silence between us that night was heavier than any argument could have been. When he finally spoke, his voice was broken, quiet, as though each word carried the weight of 1,000 shattered promises. He asked me why, and I had no answer that could make sense. In that moment, I saw the man I loved crumble. His shoulders, once broad and steady, slumped as if the foundation of his world had been ripped away. His eyes, once so warm, looked at me with a mix of pain and unfamiliarity, as though I had become a stranger in the span of a heartbeat. I had broken him. Not with fists, not with cruelty, but with a choice, a single, devastating choice. That night, he packed a bag and left. He didn't yell, didn't curse my name. He simply walked out, leaving behind the echo of a love I had taken for granted. And in the emptiness of that silence, I finally understood the depth of what I had done. In the weeks that followed, the house felt like a graveyard. Every room was haunted by memories of Daniel, his laughter echoing in the kitchen, his footsteps in the hallway, the warmth of his presence in the bed we once shared. I had destroyed not only his trust, but also the very foundation of the life we built together. Friends and family tried to comfort me, but their words felt hollow. They didn't see the look on Daniel's face, didn't feel the weight of his silence. They didn't understand that betrayal isn't just a wound, it's a scar that never fully fades. Daniel moved on, though I could see the shadow of pain still lingering in his eyes when we crossed paths. He built a life without me, one I was no longer part of. And I was left with the echo of my mistake, reminder that love, once broken, is nearly impossible to repair. I learned that betrayal doesn't just break the heart of the person you hurt, it also breaks you, piece by piece, every time you remember what you've lost. And so, I share this not as an excuse, but as a warning. The momentary thrill of being wanted elsewhere is never worth the devastation it leaves behind. Because when you betray the one who trusts you most, you don't just lose them, you lose yourself. So I ask you this, if you were given the chance to protect the heart of the person who loves you most, would you risk it for a fleeting mistake? Or would you hold it close, knowing that once broken, some hearts can never be mended?